Hello out there in
Hi.
Facebook Live land. We're here with Richard Armitage, the star of Berlin Station. And the season finale airs this Sunday, December 18th at 9 p.m. on Epix. So everyone needs to tune in and watch. Epics.
Epics.
No one's nervous. What are you talking about? So for those of us just tuning in, can you tell us a little bit about the premise of the show?
Again, how long have you got? Yeah, basically, the show is set in Berlin, hence the title Berlin Station. It's the CIA station in the center of Berlin. And I play a character called Daniel Miller, who is tasked with going into the station to hunt down a mole who is leaking CIA secrets. The mole is called Thomas Shaw, loosely based on Edward Snowden. And that operation drags Daniel down a rabbit hole. A metaphorical rabbit hole, not a literal rabbit hole, because I'm quite a big person, so getting down a rabbit hole would be quite a tight thing to do. Mm-hmm.
And how did you originally come onto the project?
I was looking for a TV show that was current and relevant and topical, and I found the script came to me about a year before we started shooting, and I read it, and then it evolved, and then I went and met with the producers and the creators, and it went from there.
Great. And, you know, it's such a great cast on this show. You know, you have Richard Jenkins, Michelle Forbes, Leland Orser. You know, can you talk about sort of working with the strong team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the best elements of our show is the casting. And, you know, the cast is largely over 40, which is really wonderful. It's a very diverse cast. Extremely experienced actors. I mean, being on set with, like you say, Richard and Leland, Michelle, Rhys, who I spent much of my time with, it was incredible. But also, I think the quality of that cast drew a really great international cast of guest artists and regulars from Germany, Poland, England, the Netherlands. So it's a very rich tapestry of actors.
And a reminder out there in Facebook Live land, we're taking your questions, so send them in. You have people watching from all over the place, from Germany, from England. Everyone's here for you.
England.
Let's see. Our first question from, Christina, this is a good one. Hector, hero or scum? Where do you stand on this and why?
Well, because I know how the show ends, I am slightly biased, and also I just love what Rhys did with his character. He has a platform which I think he would be able to stand up in a court of law and defend. I think he would probably go to jail for what he's done, but his morals are in the right place. So to me, he is a hero.
We have a question from Allison Rose. Why do you think Daniel let Hector escape? Is this strictly payback, or some level of sympathy, pity for the personal pain of what Hector went through, or a combination?
I think, in a way, Daniel lets Hector escape almost as a kind of punishment, because I think the one thing that Hector is after is the completion of this circle, and in a way, by setting him free, he relinquishes himself of responsibility for having to deal with Hector, who he's bonded to. You know, it's his friend, but also at the same time, I don't think it's what Hector wants. I think Hector is he has a masochism in him, which is part of it.
Mm-hmm. And you know, you mentioned there's such an interesting dynamic with Rhys. You know, can you talk about working with him?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, they're sort of opposite sides of the same coin, really. They were kind of melded in this event in Chechnya, whereby they became brothers. Daniel screwed up and Hector covered for him, and 10 years later they come back into each other's lives, and there is a kind of a burden and a friendship. But you know, it was great fun to work with Rhys. He's hilarious on set, despite the darkness of his character. I think it was, you know, a bit of a tonic for him. So yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Catherine has a good question. She says, since there are still questions about Daniel Miller's mother, how did you create a detailed backstory for Daniel? Was the process different than how you normally approach creating backstories?
Well, the minute I saw, you know, the first glimmer of a backstory, of course, I filled it out. So I found thousands of photographs of East and West Berliners from the sort of middle, from the 80s, and so I created like a photo album of their life, and but then the show creators really, Brad Winters and Olin Stenhauer, they created a thorough backstory, incorporating some of my ideas, but I don't know whether we will take it any further, but it certainly shaped him as a person. But it's an interesting concept.
Mm-hmm. Beatty says she loves the show. How did you cope with learning German?
Well, I did about 25 hours of German lessons here in New York before I left. And then being around a German cast and crew, I was sort of picking it up by ear. But really, I had to learn my German scenes just by sound and almost parrot fashion. So it was repeating and repeating and repeating. But it was always fun to work with a German actor and deliver the dialogue and not see him flinch. So I kind of knew I was in the right place.
Mm-hmm. And as everyone knows, the season finale airs this Sunday at 9 p.m. on Epix. We have people already looking to season 2. Anna wants to know if you think season 2 will explore any other capitals besides Berlin.
It's always been talked about. I do think that we haven't finished with Berlin just yet, but I do know that you can't really tell a story about the CIA operation outside of the US without, being involved in other major capital cities. So it wouldn't surprise me to find ourselves in London or Paris. Or Munich, but we don't know yet. But there has been a story thread which I think is going to be used in season 2, which, let's just say, the current political situation in the US has given our writers a springboard for an awful lot of storytelling.
Karen wants to know: is there a darker secret about Daniel that is yet to be revealed?
There's quite a few dark secrets which we planted in the biography. Again, I shared that with our writers, and we'll find out whether any of it gets used. But we may have a long journey to go on, so wait and see.
Julia wants to know: what was the greatest challenge for you while filming Berlin Station?
I think shaping a character over 10 episodes whereby you're looking for that moment where your character launches. They call it breaking the story. That was tricky because, of course, Daniel is the eyes and ears of the audience, and so he's really following the action rather than being the instigator of the action. And but at the same time, he's involved in it. So that was challenging. But I would probably say some of the German scenes, speaking German in front of Germans, was always a little bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple people complimenting your German on the chat.
Thank you.
Paris wants to know: would you be up for playing James Bond ever?
I think I'm a little bit old to play James Bond. I think they probably need someone in their early 30s, but I wouldn't say no.
Julie wants to know: will we ever find out what Daniel's true rank inside the CIA is?
I don't know what Daniel's true rank inside the CIA was. The one thing I do know is that he was not behind a desk at Langley for 10 years like he said he was, and what was written in his file. Every operative has a file, and it says on paper that he was at Langley for 10 years, and we know that from the first second of the first episode that he's been in Panama. So that's not true. So his file is a fabrication, so anything is possible.
Mm-hmm. And there's a bunch of people talking about your off-Broadway show, Love, 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 currently at the Roundabout. Valerie says, given your flair for comedy, will you now seek out more comedic roles?
My flair for comedy is kind of minimal. I think the flair for comedy came from the writer. So yeah, I mean, I'm not a natural comedian, but when the writing helps you out, then it's useful. But I have to say, it's been a real tonic. It's very different from what I usually do, and I've laughed every single day of doing this since we started on my birthday back in August. So yeah, it's been great.
Well, and I got to see the play, and you play Kenneth at 3 different ages in his life: 19, 42, and 62. You know, how do you get into that mindset to take that sort of long journey over a 2-hour span?
A lot of it is in the rehearsal room, so you work each act separately and individually and on its own. So you can come in on one day and you're only going to work on Act 2, so you sort of bed in your ideas at that point. But, you know, we have maybe a 10-minute break between acts, so it's really changing costumes, putting on a tie, combing your hair and walking on stage. And, you know, again, it's in the writing, it's in the set design, it's in the vocal tone that you take and the speed of the character, so the character slows down through 3 acts.
Melanie wants to know, what's your favorite German food?
My favorite German food, I guess, I think I'd have to say schnitzel.
Yeah.
I think that's German. It may be Austrian.
Well, someone will correct us.
But it's a massive piece of hammered meat that's been hammered, so it's this thin and then deep fried. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people asking about the Romeo and Juliet audiobook. Dorothea wants to know, was it difficult for you to voice so many different characters? Was it more challenging to read than Hamlet?
Not more challenging than Hamlet. I mean, it's just all about preparation. Like, you really have to read the book first and just make clear decisions about each character's voice, their age, whether they're, you know, their background, so that we can decipher. Sometimes a character will come in for one line and you just have to give them an identity. So, and also with Romeo and Juliet, having 2 families, which to differentiate between the 2 noble families from the same place was quite complicated. But it's just about making clear choices and committing to them.
Alina wants to know, what's the greatest lesson you learned from Love, Love, Love?
The greatest lesson I learned from I suppose myself as an actor is really allowing myself to be a vessel for the writing rather than trying to impose anything stylish or any kind of performance on top of the writing. Is just letting the writing do the work for me, because Mike Bartlett, our playwright, is a drummer, so the play is put together in such a rhythmic way, and he absolutely knows what that show should be. So that was kind of a lesson to me.
Mm-hmm. And we have people asking about all sorts of different works from your career. Jan is a fan of Hannibal and wants to know about the false teeth, wearing them. How was it like to act with them?
Yeah, there was one occasion, I think it was when we were shooting the scene where Dollarhide eats the painting, and they'd created an edible piece of paper, but it just kept falling apart. It just crumbled in my hand. So I said, look, I'll eat the paper, the real paper. And I had the fake teeth in. So I started chomping down on the paper, and it was kind of winter time, so I chapped lips, but basically it stretched my mouth so much that my lips were bleeding by the end of it. But it kind of works. It looks good on the film, but it's yeah, they weren't comfortable.
Anne wants to know, did you keep any props from the Hobbit movies?
I did keep. Well, actually, I was given my sword. I was given the Orcrist, and I was given the oaken shield and the map and the key to the Kingdom of Erebor. So I have those as my prized possessions.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple people on here who really, really want you to join the Fantastic Beast universe. Are you a fan of Harry Potter?
I am, yes. I read all of those books as an adult, not as a kid, and you know, I'm taking my little nephew to see the stage play when I get back to London for Christmas. So yeah, I'd like to join the Fantastic Beasts movie franchise as well. Mm-hmm. Can we get her on the phone?
JK, if you're watching.
Hello.
We have a question from Tony. She is a big fan of North and South. Can you talk about, do you have any memories from the set you could share?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, that's quite a long time ago now, isn't it? My memories are very distant. I haven't actually watched it since it was first aired on the BBC. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I do remember very clearly was a scene where Peter Greenhalgh, who was our lighting DOP, we were working in a factory, and he was trying to create this illusion of a snowstorm with cotton, and he didn't have a massive budget for the lighting, but at the moment we were shooting, the sun broke through the glass ceiling of the of the factory and just illuminated the whole room. And luckily the cameras were rolling because it was shot on film at that point, and it looked like he'd spent millions on lighting, and I've never seen a man more happy.
Kate wants to know, how does working on Berlin Station compare to working on MI5?
It's a similar genre, and I enjoy the genre. It's the kind of book that I love to read. I was a big fan of John le Carré. I expected Berlin Station to be more similar to MI5 than it really was. MI5 was probably a few years ago now, and it was very technology-based. And Berlin Station really has departed from that because the internet and gadgetry and technology is no longer a reliable place for intelligence operatives to do business. So it's gone back to a sort of old-fashioned spycraft of face-to-face interaction, which I really enjoyed because the game is about getting into the mind of the opponent.
Rose wants to know about love, love, love. Are you sick of eating cake and smoking herbal cigarettes?
I'm definitely sick of smoking the cigarettes. The cake, I can't get enough of it in my mouth. I only just about get a chance to get one mouthful in, and sometimes when we leave the stage I grab the plate and eat the rest of it in the dressing room. But definitely the herbal cigarettes, I'm done. I cannot wait to get my taste buds back.
Valentina wants to know, if you could play any other character in Berlin Station, who would it be and why?
Gosh, any other character in Berlin Station? You know what? I'm kind of happy with the lot that I got. I'm happy with Daniel.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah. Maybe Mr. Cat.
Yeah.
I could play Mr. Cat because he's only in 2 episodes and he gets to lie on his back all day.
Mm-hmm. Paris wants to know.
That's really his name, by the way. It's really, his name was Mr. Cat.
Oh my God.
Sorry, Paris, what were you saying?
Paris wants to know, if you could pick a Harry Potter house to be sorted in, which would it be? People really want you to go to Harry Potter land.
What's the...
Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw.
I think I was probably... I think I might have ended up in Slytherin. Because I'm Slytherin.
There's no shame in that.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's see, a lot of people are asking about Richard III.
Yeah.
You know, any status on that?
Well, I believe Benedict has done an amazing job in The Hollow Crown, so I'll be watching that with green with envy. But no, it's supposed to be actually Caroline Goodall, who plays Kelly Frost. She plays Cicely Neville, the Rose of Raby in The Hollow Crown. So we were having a long conversation about it, and so I think check that out. That's the only update I have.
Let's see. Brenda wants to know, is there a particular part of the world that you'd like to work in that you haven't yet?
Yeah, I've visited South America, but I'd love to work in South America and Argentina, Chile. It's a part of the world that really fascinates me, because when you go to work, you get a little holiday as well.
Yeah. Carrie wants to know, after that scene in Berlin Station with Mr. Cat, do you like cats a bit more?
I'm still a dog kind of guy, really.
That's okay.
Cats are a little bit temperamental for me. They sort of do their own thing. They like you sometimes, and then sometimes they don't care about you. Whereas dogs are always very faithful and come wagging.
If you could play any superhero, Marvel or DC, who would you choose and why?
I would play the Invisible Man. Is that actually a real character? Have I just made that up?
I'm sure someone has the power
Mr.
of
Invisible.
invisibility.
Yeah.
We have a question from Carol before we go to our wheel of live stream. If you have a really good question, get it in. Is there, you've done audiobooks like we've mentioned, Romeo and Juliet. Is there another book you're sort of longing to read?
Yeah, actually, when Audible came to me and they gave me a selection to choose from, and I chose David Copperfield to my, it's one of my favorite books. It took 12 days. It's something like 36 hours long, if you can bear to listen for that long. But one of the other books that was also a possibility was a Dostoevsky book. I think it was The Brothers Karamazov, which I would love to have a crack at. So maybe we'll do that next.
You know, as we know, the season finale airs this Sunday, the 18th at 9 p.m. on Epix. You know, Fernando wants to know, what do you hope will happen for Daniel in season 2?
For Daniel I hope that Daniel actually lives to see season 2, because I still don't know. I still don't know whether he survives or not. We saw him getting shot in the very first scene of the first episode, lying on the ground, bleeding to death. I don't know whether he got up off the ground, but we'll find out on Sunday.
Yeah. All right, we're going to bring in our wheel of live stream. We're going to ask you to give it a little spin. I know, don't be intimidated.
Does that say donuts? What does it say?
Oh, that's song.
Song. Okay. So I just spin it.
Yeah, just give it a spin.
Deal.
So deal is basically, we give you 2 options,
right,
and you know, you have to decide. You know, would you rather be sticky or wet your entire life?
Sticky or wet? Is it warm wet or cold wet?
We're gonna say
it's getting a little bit sexual, isn't it?
We'll say cold. We'll say cold.
And what kind of sticky?
Like a toffee between your hands,
wet
fingers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, okay, wet.
Wet.
Great. Why don't you give it another spin, since that was kind of.
Was that a bit rubbish? All right.
Okay, so that's story.
Story.
And so that, if you have a bad audition story, you can share with us.
You do have a bad audition story, actually. I think I may have told this one before. I was auditioning for there's a kind of tropical fruit drink in England called Lilt, which is pineapple and something. And it was a commercial casting, and with commercial castings, you sit outside and there's like a line of 50 guys that are all identical to you, and I'm at the end of the line, and I had to walk in, and they'd basically got a watermelon that they'd cut a hole in, and they asked me to kiss or snog make out with the watermelon, which involved putting your tongue into this hole, which I did, because you just do anything they tell you in a commercial casting. And then, of course, as I left the room, I realized there was only one watermelon, and there was like 50 guys outside the room, and I'm thinking, wait a second, so 50 blokes have just put their tongue in that hole of the watermelon. I mean, really. Health and safety.
Yeah, well, that's the worst, best.
It's not nice, is it?
It's not audition story I think we've heard. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
I didn't get the job either.
I mean, that's probably the unkindest cut of all. So guys, remember, Berlin Station, the season finale airs this Sunday at 9 p.m. on Epix. Tune in. Richard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.